Hey everyone, welcome to episode 256 of the Sports Bars podcast. I'm Cory Puffett, your host for this week, and it's a good thing too. I'm not sure Eric or Evan would want to host this one after what happened to the Orioles. We'll get into that on tonight's show and dive into another week of NFL action. Cue the music. Hello and welcome to episode 256 of the Sports Bars podcast. As you heard during the intro, I'm Cory Puffett, your host for this evening, and I'm joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. Should I ask how you guys are doing?
I'm actually doing really good. I'm feeling good today. Yeah.
You've had a day to process, you know?
I mean, I didn't even need a day to process. I would have been fine yesterday. I feel good. Went to the gym, took a shower on like a certain jackass roommate of yours that, decided to sit around and smell like crap for an entire afternoon, it seemed. But, Orioles lost, happens, Kind of expected it, honestly. I put it in the chat before game one. I was like, I used a word that I can't use on here, so I'll just say I thought we were in trouble.
Did you expect it to happen the way that it did, though?
I didn't think we'd get swept. I thought we'd win one game.
So, it's one of the big headlines out of this is that, the Orioles went the entire regular season without being swept in any series.
Yeah.
In fact, they had not been swept since Adley Rutschman was called up middle of last year. So it had been quite some time since the Orioles had been swept in any series. And then they got swept in 3 games by the Texas Rangers. Now, the last team, in fact, I think the only other team in Major League Baseball history who has gone an entire regular season without being swept and then failed to win a single game in the postseason was the 1998 Padres, who were managed by none other than the current Texas Rangers manager.
Bruce Bochy?
Yes.
That's... okay, so what?
It's an interesting stat.
Sure. So he got a little bit of
Is it
revenge.
that interesting, though? Like, that 98 Padres team, they went up against an absolute wagon 98 Yankees team. Like,
yes, that's true.
everybody else from the NL that year was going to get swept by the Yankees.
They got swept in the World Series, right? They didn't get swept in the ALDS or the NLDS in their case. Like getting swept sucks. I know that the silly record that Orioles fans like to prop up every time they didn't get swept in a series. Technically, and I use that word to emphasize it. Technically, that streak is not over because this is a postseason series. But for all intents and purposes, that streak is over. Like I'm not going to be interested in hearing about it next year. How if the Orioles win their first game or their second game or their third game of the season, how they still haven't been swept in 92. No, we just got swept out of the playoffs, so none of this matters.
Is there a little part of you that hopes that the Orioles get swept in the first series of the season just so that we don't even have to worry about that?
No.
Okay.
No, I want to win.
Okay.
The rest of this is nonsense. It's all about winning, man. Like, what do I care about, what people say on Twitter?
Fair enough. How are you doing, Evan?
This past weekend might have been the worst I've ever experienced as a sports fan. It was just one disaster after another.
Yeah, we'll get to your other team a little bit later on in the show.
Oh boy, we'll get to them.
And just imagine if you were a Baltimore area sports fan that also roots for the Terps.
Yes.
Like you're getting it from all angles because they blew it against Ohio State. They had a real chance to win that game, and they didn't do it.
I didn't get a chance to watch any of the game, but I saw you mentioned that the Terps had outplayed Ohio State in the first half.
Yeah.
And were not going to end up winning the game.
Yeah, they were up 17-10 in the third quarter, and they should have been up by they were up by 7. They should have been up by at least 17 at that point because they kept blowing it in the first half. And then Ohio State, who is great, eventually figured it out and started scoring points. So, a very winnable game for, which would have been a defining win for their program. Instead, they didn't even cover the 19.5 point spread. So, yeah, big turnaround late in that game. That sucked.
Pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely sucked.
So let's talk a little bit about. We'll start with the Orioles.
If we must.
You know, I don't think we necessarily need to relive this, postseason series unless there are any thoughts that you want to share about it.
I figured that Hyde would get outmanaged by Bruce Bochy.
Well, it definitely happened, yeah.
Yeah, we know Bochy knows what he's doing, and I've no shortage of complaints about Brandon Hyde, who's probably going to be manager of the year again at this point, right?
Did he do it already? He didn't win last year. No.
Oh, I don't
Somebody
remember.
else won.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember who it was. It wasn't Hyde. But, I mean, yeah, like, I the reason why I was so concerned heading into the series is when I found out that John Means was not going to be available.
Why? Yeah. What I haven't found out yet is why wasn't he available?
He had an elbow issue, soreness in his elbow, so he was not available to be put on the ALDS roster, which is sort of the flaw in the plan with the team where they were kind of relying on a dude who was coming off of Tommy John surgery, who hadn't pitched in 16 months and only had made 4 starts since returning to the Orioles, to be ready and available for a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would have been great if that had happened. But, when I saw that he wasn't available to pitch the third game of the series, and I was like, wow, so that means that Dean Kramer and Kyle Gibson are going to have to pitch games on the road in the playoffs for this team. I thought that
means one of them's not going to get to pitch.
That sounds like it sounds like they're definitely losing those 2 road games. And I also looked at Grayson Rodriguez having to pitch as a rookie with only really a half of a season under his belt of being a good pitcher, going up against a really good offense. And I'm like, that feels like a game we're going to lose too. So, and then we lose game 1. Like, game 1 was the most winnable of the series, and it showed. The Orioles lost 3-2. Right? That was a close game. They could have won it. They probably should have won it. They missed their opportunities. Whatever. Then the next 2, they just got run off the field. Right? Like, Grayson Rodriguez got tattooed pretty early, and then the Orioles didn't have a viable long man bullpen option because they didn't bother to trade for one. Right? Like, their trade deadline moves didn't even appear in a relevant fashion. Fujinami didn't even make the roster for the playoffs. They traded for him. He was not even on the playoff roster.
Well, they probably would have lost in 2 games if he was on.
No, yeah. Well,
figured out a way to do that.
He would have done
needs
better.
A map to the
he would have done at least as bad as Brian Baker did when he came in, walked 3 guys, and gave up a grand slam to lose the game.
Does the playoff roster still expand in Major League Baseball?
No.
You got 26 guys, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Brian Baker comes in, walks the bases loaded, gives up a grand slam to make it 9-2, because when Grayson Rodriguez left the game, yeah, he got hit hard, but it was only 5-2. That's still a game that you're in.
And the bases were empty when Baker showed up?
Yeah, because Kulam came in to get out of the second inning, and then Baker came in the third.
Oh, well, I'd already stopped watching. I'm like, once the Orioles went up 2-0 in game 2, I'm like, well, we're screwed.
That was good enough for you just to quit on the team
Yes,
when they decided to get a hit and get ahead? Okay.
Yeah, as soon as they took a lead, I'm like, well, we're done, because it's,
Would you have preferred that they never take a lead, which makes it also impossible to win?
I mean,
you might as well just never have watched.
They've won games this year like that where they never led.
Well, they led at the end.
Okay, but the game is no longer going on at that point.
So you're the only way the Orioles would win is if they walked it off all 3 of their home games.
He just
seems like
about
it.
The 2-0 lead.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous lead in hockey and apparently in baseball as well.
Also in baseball, it's not only a game losing; it's a series losing lead.
And in between the time I had decided to turn the game off and when I actually did, it was 3-2.
There you go.
Oh, so
just
it's
instantly.
Not like they took the 2-0 lead and you turned it off immediately. Like the Rangers got at least 2 people on base before you actually turned it off.
It took like 3 minutes.
The whole inning ended. They had a commercial break. It came back, and then more stuff happened, and that's when you turned it off. It wasn't like you turned it off as soon as Hicks got the hit. Like,
all right, Aaron Hicks was a contributor.
Yeah, he was one of their only few good players in that series. It was him, it was Gunnar, it was DL Hall, and that was kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
No.
It was a collective failure by the team. Adley Rutschman had a rough series. Seems like definitely a lesson learned type of series for him. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that Adley Rutschman's a very patient hitter at the plate. Well, the Rangers seem to use that against him. They attacked him in the middle of the strike zone on the first pitch of every count. And normally you're trying to make a good pitch that pitch, but they were like, he's not going to swing at it anyway, so just lay it in there. And Adley didn't swing at it and fell behind pretty much every count. So, might be a moment where it's like, hey, in the postseason, they read the scouting report a little bit. You got to be willing to adjust and sort of alter your plate approach, because if they're going to throw you meatballs on 0-0 counts, you got to take a rip. But that's something you learn from. Like the Orioles, just like the lack of effort. I'm not gonna say effort because maybe that's not the right word. The lack of conviction that they had at the trade deadline bore itself out here. They didn't go get a good starting pitcher that they could rely on. They didn't improve their bullpen, and both things cost them a game. They cost them game 2 because, again, they were in it and they eventually scored more runs. And then it cost them game 3 because they had to pitch Dean Kramer in a playoff game on the road, and he got rocked. So
expectedly rocked.
Yeah, like that was not a surprise. So
no.
I think that definitely there needs to be an emphasis on improving those areas of the team in the offseason. I don't know what the plan is there, but we'll find out. But even despite the sweep, it's still exciting times for the Orioles, right? Like they're gonna get better as more talent comes through, but there does have to be a consolidation of the roster. There have to be some hard choices made with some of the veterans on the team, like Austin
They're
Hayes.
not that hard of choices. Some of them.
No.
Arias,
Goodbye. Arias and Mateo are easy choices.
Goodbye.
Frazier, you don't have to make a choice. He's a free agent. But, the guys that have been here for a little while that were actually pretty good this year, like Austin Hayes is an all-star this year. Like, we can't just pretend that didn't happen. But he's a guy that feels a little replaceable with some of the prospects coming through. And he's only got 2 years before he's a free agency as well, or a free agent. And
he swings at everything.
He swings at everything, and he's also injury prone. So, holding on to him, you also got to look at Cedric Mullins a little bit, right?
Yeah.
What did he do for the last month of the season? He didn't do anything.
No.
And while he's been great, he's one of our favorite players. He's a center fielder who's becoming increasingly reliant on his defense to have value, and his defense is only valuable because he's got speed. Well, as you get older, you get slower too. And he's had multiple injuries this year as well. That's got to be a concern point too. Like, I'm not sure what Mike Elias's plan is, but you got to figure at least one of these outfielders is going to be sent away, because they've got Colton Cowser ready to, have a real shot instead of just whatever that nonsense was that he had where he played every 3 days and never really got an opportunity to get into a rhythm or anything like that. And you also have Heston Kjerstad, who needs regular playing time. So they've got to make some room.
And has easy power, too. We saw that against Houston, where he's just,
We saw it in his first home run that he hit at Oriole Park. That was just like... he turned on a pitch that was like 6 inches off the plate inside, and he just sent it into the seats. So, these guys need opportunities. And so, it's a good problem to have when it feels like, okay, we've got more talent coming in, but you do have to manage it. And so I'm curious to see what they do this offseason. But again, going into next year, Orioles fans should feel pretty good about their team. Obviously, getting swept out of the playoffs in its own right sucks, but you can leave that behind.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I prefer in a playoff series situation, if we're going to lose, to get swept rather than have to endure the agony for 3 additional days, right? Like, just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it over with. If we're going down, like just give it to me straight, Doc.
Yeah, but that doesn't do any good for the team, though. That's just because you're you. Like that.
Okay.
The rest of us like to at least have some moments where it was fun. We didn't have any fun moments, right?
No, the game didn't allow us to have any fun.
Yeah, it did not. Like
it was
asses
over.
Kicked. Like it was.
Sometimes you just get waffled.
Yeah. Well, we got waffled, and that sucked. I would have preferred to win at least one game. Like, winning one game would have been like, okay, at least we went out there and competed a little bit. We didn't get completely run off the field.
Yeah, no. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, moving off of that series, let's talk, or, short as it was, let's talk about the offseason, because, I'll start just briefly about my Yankees just to get them out of the way, because this week, Hal Steinbrenner actually talked about the Yankees' offseason plans. And he talked about how I'll actually read the quote from Steinbrenner. We're going to be making some changes. Some may be more subtle than others, but I think we've uncovered certainly things we can do better. Real specific there, bro. Like, thanks.
Maybe they win 83 games next year instead of 82.
Supposedly he had Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone along with 15 other team officials. They met in Tampa last week, which That's not very promising to me because at least one of the two of them should be one of those changes.
I've read that Boone is sticking around.
I've read that Boone and Cashman are both likely to stick around.
Well, if one of them was leaving, they'd be fired by now. Right?
One would think.
You would think so, yeah.
One would think. So, supposedly they met. Hal Steinbrenner told them all, check your egos at the door, critique each other, be honest with each other.
It's just same old stuff.
Like, who knows if anything productive is actually going to come out of that? Probably not. He discussed the results of the sessions with Aaron Judge. He's going to talk to Garrett Cole about that. It seems like they kind of have Garrett Cole as almost like a co-captain, if you will, like the captain of the pitchers or whatever. They have a third-party firm coming in who's going to supposedly...
To do what?
Supposed to analyze how the Yankees make use of their analytics data compared to how other teams use it.
They're calling in the High Inquisitor. Dolores Umbridge is coming through to take a look at how you're operating your system here. That sounds ridiculous.
So I don't know what to expect from the offseason from the Yankees as far as actual tangible changes. The only thing, like the most specific change that I saw that the Yankees are making has to do with their clubhouse at Yankee Stadium. The home clubhouse is going to get a better dining area and sleep rooms, along with other alterations.
I mean, nap time is great, so I will say that's probably a valuable addition.
You don't need to sleep, go home. that's what your home is for.
Yeah, but sometimes, like Travis Kelce says, how does he manage his schedule? He takes a lot of naps, so I mean, I'm just saying that's not the worst idea, but I just can't get over the fact that the Yankees are like under self-audit or something like that. Like they called in the cops to come check them out. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, that's crazy.
Why do you need to call anybody? Right? Like,
you have that little confidence in your own operation that you need somebody else to come tell you how it is. Like, why not just hire them?
I don't know.
It's all right in front of you and under your control. So you shouldn't be told to fix anything. You should know, like, hey, right? Like, we spent $250 million again and won absolutely nothing again. So maybe we need to try something else.
I lead with that before having you two discuss, the Orioles offseason, because I know that Evan is always super pessimistic about the Orioles, and hopefully this will at least make him feel a little more optimistic that the Orioles can do better than this with their offseason adjustments. So
I'm not optimistic. No. What?
I tried. I tried.
I will say that I've been critical.
That doesn't have anything to do with the Orioles. It's just the Yankees not doing stuff right.
I've been critical of Michael Elias a little bit with regards to how he's handled everything except for drafting and development. Obviously, drafting and development is the most important part of the job, but it's not the only part of the job. We haven't seen him have a really successful offseason. We haven't seen him have a successful trade deadline. So, but this is kind of the first real shot at it. Like, you just won 101 games. You just made the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. So now's the time where it's like we actually have expectations. We've proven we can get there. So let's make sure we keep it going. And I've mentioned obviously a starting pitcher, particularly a left-handed starting pitcher, would be valuable to this team.
How about a good starting pitcher? Let's get one of those.
Well, that's implied that the pitcher would be good. I don't want a bum.
Cole Irvin.
Well, Cole Irvin sucks. So that's exactly my point. That was who we got last year, and he didn't even make more than a dozen starts. So that's ridiculous. But we'll see what they do. Bullpen, obviously, with Felix Bautista being down, they're going to have to replace the back end of the bullpen a little bit. But there's optimism, too, with some of what we saw in September. DL Hall looks like he's legit strength out of the bullpen.
Yes.
Like, he might legitimately be a guy you could tap to say, hey, you want to be the closer? But they also have Tyler Wells. I'm hoping that my hope is that they don't go down the route of let's run Tyler Wells out there to be the starter, the fifth starter again, and then he wears down again. Like, he just feels like a guy who's fit for the bullpen, but if he's in the bullpen, he's going to thrive. And so being able to replace him and his starts with an actual starting pitcher makes everybody.
Actual starting pitcher.
Right, like Tyler Wells was a fill-in. Let's be honest. That's what he was.
You replace Cole Irvin, right?
I don't want him starting. Yeah, you can go. But he replaced Kyle Bradish initially in that game.
Oh, right.
And then
against the Rangers, no less.
Then he stayed in there, but he was great until his arm kind of wore down, and I'm not sold that he's just because he'll be better for it next year. Is he going to be good enough to go 180 innings? Because that's what you need to do. So
180 innings plus
plus
the
the
playoffs,
post if you
right?
get there. So and the expectation should be to get back to the playoffs. So I'd like to see them, really fill out that pitching staff because I like everybody's like they need to sign a big bat. I'm like, well, just get the guys that we think are going to be good up there now and see what they can do.
Yeah,
But why do you need a big bat?
With the order, it's got to be addition by subtraction, right? Like, just get a deeper lineup that doesn't have automatic outs down at the bottom of it. We can't expect Jorge Mateo to be a good hitter ever again, right? Like, that was out of nowhere.
I should give him credit though. He was one of the bright spots too. He went 4 for 4 in a game, and it didn't mean anything because the Orioles lost. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, shows how much I was watching. Yeah, and then Ramon Arias. I mean, we've talked about him plenty for.
I wanted him traded last December.
So, yeah. And then Frazier, he's a free agent, so he's got to go. So yeah, just by getting rid of those guys and replacing them with somebody who might be better than them. Like, we know those guys are bums. We don't know that Connor Norby, for example, is a bum, right? We haven't seen him.
No, we have reason to hope that he might be better than that. Like the way he's performed in AAA indicates that he's got an opportunity to be a legitimately pretty good major league hitter.
Jackson Holliday needs to be mentioned in here a little bit.
And Jordan Westbrook needs to be mentioned too, because even when he got called up, he was still splitting time with these guys. And it's like,
for some reason,
that guy needs to play. He needs to be penciled in as the everyday second baseman or third baseman. Or
he was already a better
up.
fielder than Urias and Frazier.
Yeah,
so
and he's a better hitter. Right?
Yeah, that too.
He still put up like at least an average season at the plate, and that was without even getting regular opportunities. Mm-hmm. Like, he was frequently being jerked around, and he still was, OPS plus of around 100. Right? Like, that's
good enough.
That's good enough when you're playing good defense, and when you're a rookie and you're not getting consistent time. That like we've seen other rookies that the Orioles have called up where they did the same thing, and they couldn't hit to save their lives in those circumstances. So the fact that Westbrook has succeeded despite not getting regular playing time or consistent playing time, that speaks to how potentially good he could be.
Yeah. What? I guess the last question: what's going to happen to Santander?
I think you got to keep him.
Oh.
Like I think that. I think what you got. He's too valuable as a switch hitting option. Gives you power. He can play right field adequately. Like last year, his defense wasn't very good. This year, it actually was.
He was
pretty
so
good.
much better. I was shocked.
I don't know what happened, but he was way better this year. He can DH. He can even give Mountcastle a spell at first base if he needed to. He's got some versatility. And what happens at the end of the year when he becomes a free agency, or he becomes a free? I keep saying that he becomes a free agent next year. Okay, so you make him a qualifying offer. He turns it down, and you get a pick. That's the worst case scenario. You get another pick for the guy who's great at drafting. So, like, I think that he's too good of a player for the Orioles right now. The Orioles still have to focus on winning in 2024. It can't all be about what about 2026. No, he's a good player for what they need next year. So just let it ride. You don't have to give up everybody that's about to become a free agent. You can just let it ride. There's nothing wrong with just seeing what happens, and then when they hit free agency, you go your separate ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or maybe they give him a little extension. I don't know, but they don't have to trade him. Is my point.
Okay. Alrighty.
All right. Well, we'll move off of the Orioles. Just talk briefly about what else is going on in baseball. The Dodgers joining the Orioles and getting swept.
See, that makes me feel a little better because the Dodgers are supposed to be good and the Orioles were a surprise. Right? Like, the Orioles were like a toss-up to win this series according to Vegas. The Dodgers were heavy favorites to beat the
To be fair, the Dodgers got swept by a team that was a surprise in the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
So
another team that the Diamondbacks joined the Orioles with 110 losses in 2021. Like, the two teams tied for the number one pick in the draft. And I don't remember what the tiebreaker was. Oh, it was the record the previous year.
But it doesn't matter what the tiebreaker was because they were going to take Drew Jones no matter what.
Oh, that's what they picked?
Yeah. It's a shame because he's struggling.
Oh, well,
The Phillies currently lead the Atlanta Braves 2-1. Not looking great for Atlanta. We'll see what happens in that series, though.
Like, bonkers game 2, though. That was wild.
The Houston Astros were able to beat the Minnesota Twins. Took them 4 games, but they did get the series win. So they move on.
Good for the Twins.
And they got one, yeah.
Yeah. And what are your guys' thoughts on the format for the playoffs this year?
I mean, we talked a little bit about just in terms of the seeding, how that was kind of stupid, but we knew that going in. There's talk about the bye week teams having a whole week off, and I said last year I thought that was a little bit much as far as time off goes. That being said, that doesn't excuse anybody for losing a series, right? Like that's ludicrous. You got to play when you're scheduled to play, and you better show up. And if you don't, you deserve to lose, right?
Did the Astros have any trouble with? Oh, they had the bye week,
No.
so they got swept by Minnesota. No,
Like you look at the 3 teams that had byes that are in trouble or lost already, right? The Orioles lost. They didn't lose because they had the bye. They lost because their roster had inadequacies for a playoff run that we knew about coming in. We just hoped they would overcome it, and they didn't. The Braves are going to lose in all likelihood because they lost a game at home to Philly, and now they have to go into that insane asylum and get a win, and they're not going to.
yeah.
So, that's why. And the Dodgers lost because the Dodgers choke all the time.
Clayton Kershaw gave up 6 runs in Game 1, and I'm like, well, they're done. That's it.
He didn't get anybody out.
Oh, right, he did get 0 batters out.
That was insane.
Or no, he got 1 guy out.
Oh, he got
one guy
out? Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he didn't get anybody out. But, I think that it would be nice just for the purpose of let's get the ball rolling as a fan. Start the series on Friday, right? And I don't care if the wild card team has to go 3, then you don't get a day off. That's your penalty. So get your series done quickly. But to me, it doesn't affect the outcomes. It's just but baseball's supposed to be played mostly every day. I'd like to see it played every day. I don't want 2 days off just when the postseason's getting started. That's just it's kind of a waste. Get the series started earlier, but as far as how it affects the competition, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, oh, well, we got screwed by the playoff seeding. I'm like, you were the best team in the American League. You're supposed to win, and you didn't get it done.
Yeah, you got your ass whooped, man.
Yeah.
Like, the Rangers didn't come in and whoop your ass just because you had 5 days off instead of 4.
Yeah,
right?
no.
They came in and beat you because they were playing better than you at the right time, and that's what matters in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They showed up, you didn't, you go home.
End of story. Anything else on baseball front?
I mean, the Braves and Phillies are about to start right now as we speak. So I honestly would like to check some of that game out because it's going to be nuts.
Yesterday's game was nuts. Bryce Harper, 2 jacks. Yeah. Stared down Arcia both times around the bases after he was talking some ish.
Yeah, Bryce Harper, has a knack for rising to the occasion. That's how you know a guy is for real. When, the lights are brightest and people are saying stuff and there's bulletin board material and he's like, yeah, I'm the biggest star in this field right now.
Well, and the thing is, he wasn't always of that nature when he was in D.C. I know he had the series against the Giants where he hit all the dingers, but he had his ups and downs there. It just feels like he's invigorated by being a Philly, right? Like, he seems to really actually love Philadelphia and playing in front of that crowd and playing for that organization. Like, people thought, hey,
I hope so.
Well, people thought he just went there because they gave him all that bread and nobody else was really interested, which is kind of strange when you think about the fact that seemingly nobody wanted Bryce Harper. But, he really has leaned into being a Philadelphia Philly, and the fans love him for that. And I give him a lot of credit for that. Like, I used to be a guy who didn't like Bryce Harper at all, but, with the Phillies, he's just so much more likable just because he's out there being a Philly. Whereas with the Nats, it felt like he was always kind of detached from that team.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit of college football earlier with the Terps and the disappointing outcome against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah. But Evan, you talked about how this was like the worst sports week of your life.
It was, yeah.
Georgia Tech didn't help with that at all?
They salvaged it, right? just a little bit,
So, for those who don't pay attention to games that are pretty low on the totem pole for college football.
Just say ACC football.
I mean, it was
ACC football.
This game was not on the CW, for the record.
This was the number 25 Miami Hurricanes playing at home against Evan's Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Who were unranked, for the
record.
record.
Who were unranked. Came into the game 2-3. Compared to 4-0 for Miami going into the game, and Georgia Tech won 23-20
in quite hilarious fashion too.
How did that happen?
I mean, don't ask Mario Cristobal, right?
No, you should ask him because he could definitely tell you what happened.
So, Georgia Tech was out of timeouts, and we were under 40 seconds, and all Miami had to do was kneel down, and the game is over. They decide to hand the ball off. The running back fumbles the ball. Georgia Tech recovers.
While fighting for extra yards, by the way. Like, he was doing a whole, trying to, do an angry run or something like that, and that's when he coughed it up.
No.
It also should be noted, he didn't actually fumble. He was definitely down by contact. I have no idea when they reviewed it. I have no idea why they didn't overturn it. The ball was clearly tucked in between his bicep and his forearm with the elbow on the ground, but they determined there wasn't enough evidence to overturn the fumble call.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is there.
So, I gotta ask, do you know the name of the Herm Edwards equivalent for the Yellow Jackets?
It's the Miracle at the Meadowlands.
Right, so what's the name of the person who picked it up for the Yellow Jackets to score?
It wasn't a scoop and score.
No.
Like, we just recovered at that spot. We had to go on offense and score a touchdown.
So this was not like the last game or the last play of the game, basically.
There was like
It should have
20-ish
been, but it
seconds
wasn't.
left or something like that.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech went down the field in 2 plays, 75 yards, by the way. So this is a massive defensive breakdown too. So let's add that to that fuel to the fire. But yeah, it was outrageous that they didn't just take a knee, and I think that there's some speculation that the running back had 99 rushing yards, and so they handed it off to him.
They wanted to get to 100.
Well, he did, damn it. He got there. He gained 4 yards on the play, and then he grasped it, and they lost. So,
yeah,
that's
definitely
pretty rough.
very reminiscent of the Miracle at the Meadowlands, which, it's funny that play actually had 2 very well-known names associated with it. You had Herm Edwards, who scooped it and scored, and then the running back who, I don't even remember the name of the quarterback for the...
Pisarcik.
Yeah, Pisarcik, thank you. Forgot his name, but he was trying to hand it off to Larry Zonka.
Oh.
That play is why you have victory formation.
Yes, that is literally the reason that victory formation is a thing now.
Yeah,
so
I found it hilarious because Mario Cristobal's gotten in trouble with this before, like when he was at Oregon.
How did this happen another time?
It wasn't the exact same situation. There was like that residual time where you kind of have to run a play because if you take a knee, you take 1 second off the clock, whereas a run play takes 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of doing that, but it's like then the running back fumbled in that situation. It's not quite the same, but you would have thought at that point you would err towards the side of kneeling at all times,
especially when you don't need that residual time.
No, there is no extra time you got to burn.
Or take a safety on purpose when you're up by 3, right? Just run backwards.
Yeah.
Just do everything but what you did.
Fighting for extra yards.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. Like, what a scene. How is he still employed after that? Like that is.
Well, I guess the hospital didn't make enough money from the pandemic to fire him too.
It's coaching malpractice. I mean, all you have to do, like an 8-year-old playing Madden knows how to finish off a game in that situation without blowing it, and yet highly paid coach is making $8 million a year. Can't figure it out. It's insane. Yeah,
and that's not the worst part of what happened. If we scroll down to bad beats right quick.
Oh no.
Yeah. So apparently in gambling it's become a trend to just put a parlay together of a bunch of heavily favored teams to just win. So there was a guy who bet $100 on a 14-leg parlay of heavy favorites to win. He already got the first 13 right. The 14th was 21-point favorite Miami to beat little old Georgia Tech. And for his $100 bet, he was going to win $1,830. And he won 0.
I feel no sympathy for people who do 14-leg parlays on heavy favorites. I find that to be like the cheapest thing ever. So, I'm
not
glad,
to mention, usually when you're talking about like a parlay with that many legs to it, like you can get to the end and you could do something to like avoid losing all of it. Yeah, you can hedge it. Yeah.
Why would he hedge? All Miami had to do was kneel down.
Well, and at that point,
giving away money.
At that point, it's too late to hedge it because how are you going to hedge it? Like they're not going to take action on it I think Miami's going to lose now or something like that. The book was closed.
Yeah.
And then Mario Cristobal opened it and said, hey, y'all want to win?
Yeah. So,
right.
I guess it could be worse. Could lose money.
Let's go ahead and move on to the NFL, as Thursday Night Football is actually just about to get started. For those who are listening not live, we're recording on Thursday night this week. We did not record Wednesday because the hope was that the Orioles would win one of their games and would have a game on Wednesday.
Or there's also the hope that the Orioles would win all of the games and not have a game Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yo, that didn't happen.
No.
In any case, we went ahead and just scheduled for Thursday just in case. And so we are recording at the same time that Thursday Night Football is about to get started. But let's go ahead and jump into our NFL topics. We'll start with a quick rundown of our teams from last week. And just to go ahead and finish ripping the Band-Aid off, Evan, let's talk about your Ravens.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, there's a long list of people I'm ready to run out of town right now. Number 1 on the list is Nelson Aguilar. This guy can't catch a cold. I'm surprised he caught the airplane to London. Hopefully they just leave him over there. I am so done with this guy. I didn't think there'd be anybody hated on the Ravens more than Alejandro Villanueva.
Big Al.
Yeah, Big Al, who can't block anybody. But no, Nelson Aguilar can't block anybody either, and he can't catch the ball, right? Lamar threw what was going to be a touchdown pass right on the money. And Aguilar just can't catch it.
What is that noise?
Unbelievable,
How
right?
do I spell?
Yeah, exactly. Ask Aguilar.
Inaudible noises, I guess.
Oh my God. So that was just one of the 8 dropped passes in this game. Zay Flowers clanked a couple of them. Rashad Bateman clanked one.
Rashad Bateman had a panic attack out there when the ball was coming. He just freaked out. Oh my God, the ball's right there. I'm gonna catch a touchdown. And he just smacked at it or something. It was ridiculous.
Which was preceded by Mark Andrews also, doing the same thing.
Didn't catch the ball.
No, just right through his hands. Just, my arms are too big and long. I can't catch with my hands.
I'm upset that we're just moving off of the fact that Eric just said inaudible noises.
Yeah, it wasn't the right word.
Oh.
What kind of noise is inaudible?
Like a dog whistle, you can't hear it.
Inaudible noises.
That's
If
fine.
a tree falls in the forest, doesn't make a sound. That's
Is
an
that
inaudible noise.
Is that an inaudible
I
noise?
think it is.
Maybe that's an
I think it
inaudible
is.
noise.
Whatever that was, we can throw that in there, even though we definitely heard it. We just don't know what it was.
Yeah, no. So,
Unintelligible. Would probably be
There we
the-
go.
yeah. Oh my God! I totally missed. I'm getting a little worked up.
Yes,
right.
you
And
are. I'm sorry to jump right
I was
into
letting you
your train
cook
of
because
thought.
I knew Cory was thinking it. I was like,
no, missed that completely.
Cory's not going to let that go.
No. You guys never let anything that I say
course
go,
not.
so
No.
of course I'm not going to let
Of course not.
something
That's
say
the
go.
game.
Yeah,
That is the game.
yeah.
Continue, Evan.
So the rate.
Is John Harbaugh on your list of people you want to run out of town at this point? He's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Told you.
Yeah.
Told
He
you 2 weeks ago.
He should have been on your list for a couple of years now, if you're asking me. But definitely since a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, since Sunday, Harbs, get your head out of your ass for 5 minutes.
Why didn't they
Okay,
get the field goal?
just kick the ball. All right, it is football. Just
But-
kick it. On the road, kick it. In Pittsburgh, kick it.
But their kicker is Justin Tucker. I mean,
He's only
on,
the best
no.
ever, right? And they were kicking at the closed end of the stadium too, where it's less windy. Just
to be fair,
pop it right
wasn't
through.
a 66-yard field goal.
It was like a 26-yarder.
Yeah, exactly. Tucker's only good from 50 plus, right?
You can only make the long kicks.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And then the play calling down at the goal line. Todd Monken proved and just demonstrated everybody that he does not understand what this rivalry is about. It's about physicality and toughness and grit, not being cute at the 5-yard line. So it was 2nd and goal at the 5, and I see Patrick Ricard and Gus Edwards running off the field. Like, well, what? Those are the plays they need to be on the field for. Okay, you bring in the big uglies to be bigger and uglier than the Pittsburgh guys. And Munga's like, no, we're going to do some little underhanded flip, like we're the Kansas City Chiefs or somebody.
It didn't work at all.
Yeah, no, that didn't work at all. Shocker. So,
They called a fade.
Yeah, and then they
Odell.
called a fade.
And Lamar made an awful throw.
Oh, that throw was terrible.
Let's be clear. That throw sucked. But the play call was doomed from the start. Odell is a 5'11" receiver who
has one good ankle.
Maybe back in his prime when he was regularly healthy, he could go win a jump
Posting the
ball.
Ravens,
But
for example.
He could definitely win a jump ball back then. He did on a regular basis back then.
but
it's been a few years.
But Odell at this point, as a 30-year-old receiver with a lot of injury history, his value is he's a crisp route runner and he's got good hands, right? So which is
imagine
valuable.
having that guy.
It's valuable to have that guy, but I'm not throwing that guy a jump ball.
No, you have to put the ball where he can still keep both feet on the ground, essentially.
Yeah, throwing. And again, Lamar's throw was just
atrocious,
unconscionable. I don't know how you made that bad. I could have made a better throw than that. It was awful. But again, best case scenario, it's fourth down at that point because that play's not going to work.
It's really crazy to me that we're sitting here talking today about how bad Lamar's throw was when literally a week ago, last Wednesday, we're talking about how he made one of the best throws we've ever seen in our lives on the touchdown pass to Mark Andrews.
Yeah, and Lamar made a lot of great throws. He was brilliant overall in the game.
Yes, again.
How many balls did the Ravens drop in that game?
8 dropped passes.
I was about to say it had to be more than 5 at least.
They hadn't dropped a pass all season either. They made it all up.
Hopefully,
for
they just got it all out of their system
against the Steelers. Really,
there was a game. There was a game 5 years ago now where Deontay Johnson basically did that. He dropped 7 balls in a game, and then he didn't really have any drops after that.
Well, I guess Deontay Johnson was in the game this week. Good.
No, I made a joke about that after the game. I was like, I think Deontay Johnson's not actually on the IR. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers put him undercover on the other
sideline. Kicked him to the Ravens and said, "Hey, you go run some routes out there. Pretend you're Zay Flowers. They'll never know." Yeah, it was insane. And if you're the Ravens, you got to be kicking yourself because we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the Bengals had this nightmarish start to their season. They're one game back of first place.
Yep.
Yep. The Steelers are terrible. Objectively, they were bad.
They're a bad team,
right? Their
they're
offense
above 500,
and they're in first place.
The streak could still be alive.
Your boy picked them to go to the playoffs, and that looks like absolute nonsense. But as of today, they'd be in. So
they'd be the 3 seed. They would be hosting the Ravens if the season ended today.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous.
Oh my God, this stupid game. It's
So
just unbelievable.
Before we move to Eric's and my teams,
we had
talk,
good weeks.
Yeah, we did. But before we get to that, we'll talk just very briefly about Eric's and my former team because Alex Mayo's in the chat. And,
someone's in the chat.
He just wanted to mention to you, Evan, that it could be worse. Your team could get doubled up on at home to a team that hadn't won a game in almost a calendar year and then not fire everybody the next day.
They should have fired Ron Rivera back in
They should
December.
have fired Rivera a long time ago.
Should have fired Rivera the day after they hired him.
Well, I mean,
that's a little much. But
that is a little much.
But yeah, let's talk about our teams. Quickly, I'll talk about my Lions because we absolutely steamrolled the Panthers. Not quite as badly as Eric's team steamrolled the New England Patriots, but really good offensive day for the Lions. I mean, Sam Laporta caught 2 touchdown passes. That was great to see, especially with Amon-Ra St. Brown not playing. David Montgomery had another really good game on the ground. Jared Goff did throw 1 interception in the game, so he's thrown interceptions in back-to-back games after going 13 games in a row, I think, without throwing a pick.
Games, yeah.
So, a little bit disappointing on that front, but he continues to play well. He's doing what we need him to do. And the defense played pretty well. Gave up some points toward the end of the game in garbage time that didn't really matter too much, especially that touchdown to Adam Thielen in the fourth quarter. Who cares? We won 42-24, and it was just a really good team win overall. You love to see a team be able to do that when you're missing, arguably your best player in St. Brown. So hopefully Amon-Ra will be good to go this week. He's been dealing with an abdominal injury. So he did practice Wednesday. He was limited. And I think that they actually took him off the injury report today, which is a really good sign for this weekend. So, hopefully he'll be a full go. My fantasy team could certainly use it.
Yeah, it feels like the Lions are they're starting to form into a team where it's like it almost doesn't matter who's out there; they're going to have a good day offensively.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not a team that on paper looks like it should be this formidable, like overpowering offense, but we do a really good job of sustaining drives.
Ben Johnson's also great. You gotta give him his credit. He's making cases.
He's offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they give out They give out like coordinator of the year. He's definitely.
Greg Roman won
he's
that.
100% in the running for that because the play calling has been really good on offense. I mean that's half the battle when you're talking about a team that doesn't have like a ton of top tier guys. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown is great. David Montgomery can be great. He's definitely very good. Jahmyr Gibbs is an incredibly dynamic player, but still very raw.
And they're figuring out how to use him.
Yeah, we're figuring out how to use him. He's figuring out how to be an NFL running back. He has certainly not been infallible when he's been on the field. Jared Goff is a good quarterback, but nothing that he is doing right now even touches the surface of what he was doing in those really strong years with the Rams when Sean McVay first got there. Like at that point, Jared Goff looked like a legitimate, top 5 maybe quarterback, certainly top 10 easily.
Yeah.
Right now, if you're putting him in the top 10 among quarterbacks, it's really just because of his consistency.
Sure.
He's not, he is definitely not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL in terms of his skill set right now. But he's playing like he is. And a lot of that is because of Ben Johnson and the play calling on the offensive side of the ball. So I've been really happy with what I've seen from the Lions so far this year. They're really exciting to watch.
They ran a direct snap to a running back with the quarterback under center.
They did.
That is
through his legs.
Is wild. And I thought it was the coolest. And I started thinking, at first I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I thought, I was like, why doesn't everybody do that?
Well, it's crazy because I didn't even notice it live. I only noticed it when it showed up on my Instagram feed after the fact. Because the play that really stood out to me was the reverse flea flicker on the second touchdown to Laporta, which, it was really funny because then Sunday night, the 49ers run the exact same play, and it's a touchdown, the second touchdown pass of the game to another Iowa tight end, George Kittle.
Yeah. Iowa boys.
Part of me wonders, did they coordinate this in some way?
They were on the phone just saying, hey,
either they were on the phone beforehand or the 49ers were watching that game and were like, oh, let's try that tonight. And, how do you just plug a play in the day of? It just seems too coincidental for two teams to independently run that same play and have so many different coincidences. It's the second touchdown of the game for that tight end. They're both from Iowa. What?
Isn't National Tight Ends Day coming up?
Yeah, but it wasn't on Sunday.
Okay. Trey Turner just hit a double in the first
remember
inning,
to put all your flex spots in fantasy should be tight ends on National Tight End Day because they love to score touchdowns on tight end day.
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's talk about your Saints, Eric.
That was a surprise a little bit, right? I thought they would win, but I think this is more about the Patriots just being heinous, right? The Saints defense has been good for most of the season. The offense didn't have to do much because McCorkle threw a heinous pick six. I think he turned the ball over 3 times. So the Saints were regularly operating on short fields. Just not a whole lot that the Saints offense had to do here, just because the defense was so dominant against this just moribund offense. Mac Jones sucks. He's cooked. Bill Belichick didn't have any face palms this week. I think he's just given up. Right, it feels like the Patriots are going into the tank, which is something you didn't think you'd ever see with Bill Belichick still coaching the team. But I mean, they're awful. Tell me that that's not one of the worst 5 teams in football right now.
I'm not going to.
You can't.
Just quit asking.
Yeah, you can't tell me that that's not a run a team that's definitely in the running for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. They are definitely in there. They got 1 win against the Jets. They barely won that game.
Ooh.
Right, so who else are they gonna beat? Man, they've got a tough schedule too. They just suck. But I'm happy the Saints took advantage of playing this just awful team and blew them out. Right, that's encouraging because the Saints have kind of let not so great teams hang around, and it bit them in the ass against the Packers. Right, they blew that game entirely. They kind of let the Panthers hang around for a while. It hasn't been smooth sailing, but this time they're just no, we're gonna take care of business and just run them off the field. Now I appreciated that.
Sorry, I'm messaging Drew in the league chat because I just noticed he activated and started the Chiefs defense from his IR, but they're not eligible to come back until week 8. Like,
Okay.
what are you doing, Drew? So I just had to manually take them out of his starting lineup because they just started the game. Try to sneak them in there.
People trying to be slick, huh?
Yeah, he's trying to be slick. So I'll finish writing that message in a minute, but let's go ahead and start getting into some of the rest of our review of Week 5. We'll start with the biggest regret as far as our spread picks. Evan doesn't have one because
No.
he went 11-1-1 last week.
About 11-2-1.
What were the two?
The first game and the last game, we got the Manders wrong because they sucked. And then who played on Monday night? I got that one.
The Packers and the Raiders played, and the Raiders actually won.
Oh,
I
yeah.
picked the Packers.
Yeah, I picked Green Bay. That was it. And
So
then
your
I
only
pushed
losses
on.
were, we were all on the same page. So
Yeah. I don't know what y'all were doing, right?
I don't know what you were doing the first 4 weeks. So,
I don't know either. But yeah, no regrets out of me. Had it all away.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Really good week for Evan. So Eric and I will quickly go through our biggest regrets. Mine, even though we all picked them, I regret picking the Manders. What was I thinking?
Why would you pick
Why would I ever trust the Commanders?
Why would you
to
trust
cover
the Bears?
a 5.5 point spread.
The Bears might be better against the spread this year than the Manders.
Oh.
I don't know if that's actually true, but it sounds like something that could be true.
Might be a fact based on nothing.
No, but I remember the Bears covered against the Broncos, right? Like they lost, they blew the game, but they still covered because they were 3.5 point underdogs. They only lost by 3. But the Manders, they did not cover against the Cardinals, where they were huge favorites week 1. They didn't cover against, or maybe they did cover against the Broncos because the Broncos only lost by
They
2.
beat the Broncos.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, were the Broncos favored?
Yes.
That's right, because people didn't
Broncos
realize how
were
bad they
favored.
Yeah, they wouldn't be favored if they played again today.
No,
But,
they would not.
But so maybe that's their one win against the spread. But other than that, it's been pretty ugly. They might have covered against the Eagles. Yeah,
They probably
covered,
did.
They covered against the Eagles, but the Bears have covered a couple of times. So I don't really see an issue with picking the Manders when the other option's the Bears, right?
I don't either.
That's why I didn't buy it when you said, "Hey, maybe you should make that your biggest regret." I'm like, no, because the alternative was probably worse, and
I would have laughed in your face on this podcast. You picked the Bears? You kidding me?
yeah, and I would have been right, but that doesn't make it a good decision.
No.
My biggest regret is picking the Bills to cover. I think it was a 5.5 point line against the Jags.
It was,
In London, which is basically a Jags home game.
The Jags spent the week out there.
They spent the week out there, so the Bills had rolled several teams heading in. But the thing to remember about the Bills is they can blow anybody out any week, but they are as susceptible as any good team that I've ever seen.
But nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
And
even
That's
in London,
true.
they had a really good turnout as far as their fans in London. It was
Sure.
like a 50-50 crowd.
And they're going to win the Super Bowl, but that didn't happen. So, but I also forgot a key detail is that the Jags kind of own the Bills a little bit. It's inexplicable, but they for whatever reason the Bills offense struggles against that team. Josh Allen, the linebacker, seems to have Josh Allen, the quarterback's number. They never score points against them, and I was like, why did I decide to lay 5.5 points knowing all that history? And it was just based on the fact that the Bills had just run the Dolphins off the field. They had run the previous 2 teams they played off the field. I was like, oh, well, here come the Bills. They're picking up steam. Well, they were picking up steam the last time they played the Jags, too, and they lost that game. And I should have seen that coming.
Yeah, my proudest pick is that game. And for all the reasons that Eric mentioned, maybe I shouldn't be super proud of picking that team. It wasn't necessarily going out on a limb here. But it basically went the way I expected. I expected that the Jags might win that game. So I was pretty proud of my pick there. Eric, you don't have a proudest pick listed.
Yeah,
no.
There was nothing there that I felt really good about. Most of them were pretty obvious, and the ones that weren't obvious, I got wrong. So there's not really anything where I'm like, oh well, I nailed that. The Saints beat the Patriots. Who cares?
Well, Evan had 2 Lone Wolf picks last week, and he got both of them right. He picked the Bengals covering a 3-point spread, beating a 3-point spread against the Arizona Cardinals on the road as his proudest pick.
I don't know what football y'all were looking at, right?
We're looking at a terrible start for the Bengals and a scrappy start for the Cardinals.
Bengals looked like a worse team than the Cardinals through 4 weeks.
I mean,
they really did.
The Cardinals just looked fun and, like you said, scrappy. But,
the Cardinals did not look like either of those things.
The Bengals had a worse record.
The Bengals were just playing bad, but I didn't think they were bad, right? Like, this isn't the Bengals from, like, 2003
I can't just wait for the Bengals to, I can't just every week, this is the week they're going to figure out how to play football again.
I did that for 2 weeks.
They've shown for 4 weeks that it wasn't happening, so I'm like, I'm not going to trust them.
Yeah.
But you trusted the Cardinals.
Based on what had happened the previous weeks, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no. The Bengals were better than the Cardinals. Maybe it's the human nature thing where you only take in new information that you already agree with, right? Because I knew going into the season, we all did, that the Bengals were better than the Cardinals.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
But then the Cardinals start playing better than we thought, and the Bengals can't seem to do anything right. Speaking of not doing anything right, the Broncos
went for it on 4th and 3.
And Russell didn't throw the ball.
And he didn't get back to the line of scrimmage either.
Well, that doesn't matter. You got to get 3 yards.
No. Yeah, so, I mean, they started off a little different than we thought, but what had actually changed, though, between...
The thing that actually changed was the Bengals looked like doo-doo. That's what had changed. You can't look that bad and expect me to just act like it didn't happen for 4 weeks.
But it turns out the secret sauce of the Bengals was not having T. Higgins in the game.
Oh, that was the difference?
Yeah, he didn't play.
Oh, okay.
Basically forced Joe Burrow to just force feed Jamar Chase 19 targets.
Yeah, and I have waved the white flag on my fantasy season because of it. Because my team actually played pretty well this week, but Sean got almost 50 points from Jamar Chase, and that was enough. So.
It was the second highest scoring wide receiver game in our league's history.
Gotta be kidding me.
Behind who?
Behind Tyreek Hill from a couple years ago.
Against the Ravens?
By the way, briefly, DJ Moore's game on Thursday night was the number 2 wide receiver scorer in our league's history.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
I had him in the other league, and he helped me win.
Because I was going against DJ Moore in 2 leagues. In both leagues. DJ Moore, who never scores any points ever.
Doing anything.
Never gets touchdowns.
Yeah, he never does anything.
He did not get a single touchdown last season.
Oh,
was it
God.
last season or 2 years ago? I'm pretty sure it was last
So?
season.
Last year.
Regardless.
No, he caught a touchdown.
Might have been both years.
Might have been
He
one
never does anything. Everyone's like, watch out for DJ Moore. He might be asleep. Or like, no, he's just asleep. He never does anything.
He scored 3 touchdowns.
And then,
He's a very good player that has consistently had awful quarterbacks and bad offensive systems.
like Allen Robinson,
Allen Robinson had that 1 year where he was just, he caught a 90-yard touchdown pass in the offs, the fantasy offs for Cory.
Mm-hmm.
And Cory won the title somehow that year.
Unbelievable. So,
weird year.
Thank you, Allen Robinson, and thank you, David Johnson.
Oh, boy. what were we even supposed to be talking about?
We were talking about the Bengals and them being your proudest pick. But we'll go ahead and move on to the most surprising. I was most surprised by the Saints walloping the Patriots the way they did.
Same.
The Saints were 1-point favorites in that game.
Yeah.
At Gillette.
And they won at Gillette. And they won by 34. I actually lone wolfed the Patriots. I had them winning that game. Thus, it being my, it could have been my biggest regret for sure. I thought about it, but I decided
that
on
should
Thursday,
be your biggest regret
probably
instead of Washington.
But after Thursday, I was like, you know what? I'm purely because I don't like the Commanders anymore.
There's some vitriol towards the team.
Out of principle, there is some vitriol here that I need to get off my chest. So, of course, I was going to make them my biggest regret. But I had to go ahead and mention this game as well because this is a Bill Belichick defense that has now given up 72 points over the last 2 games, while the offense has scored a grand total of 3.
Well, it doesn't help that
you've been outscored by 69 points.
That's not nice.
It's not nice for the Patriots.
It was nice for my team.
It was nice. It was very nice for your team.
Felt
and it
great.
was very nice for the Dallas Cowboys last week. Eric, your most surprising was the Chiefs' struggle win against Minnesota.
Yeah, like the Chiefs covered because I'm pretty sure they're only 3-point favorites on the road or something like that, which we all happily jumped on. But it looked like for a big chunk of that game that they were going to lose. And especially when Travis Kelce had what looked like a very severe injury that turned out to not be a severe injury because he's playing tonight and he finished that game and caught a touchdown pass. Like they looked like they were in real trouble. Like Mahomes on that 3rd and 18 where he just dropped back and threw off his back foot. What in God's name's going on in this game?
Travis Kelce just caught a pass near the first down marker and then immediately lateraled it out to Noah Gray.
I'm like a first down. He didn't. But anyway, so like Mahomes drops back and just heaves up a prayer, and somehow Minnesota's defensive back mistimes his jump so poorly that not only is he not able to pick the pass off, he doesn't really even get a hand on it, and he gets mossed for like a 33-yard completion. And at that point, I'm just like, well, that's the game, right? Like that was your opportunity to get an interception off of Mahomes, flip the field, and put yourself in a position to take a lead and really take command of this game. But it's the Vikings, and the Vikings do what they do, and they messed it up. So that happened. But yeah, I was just a little surprised that the Chiefs' offense has kind of looked a little iffy at times this year, but not against awful defenses like Minnesota's. Like they rolled the Bears, and you figured they would roll Minnesota, and I figure they're going to roll the Broncos' terrible defense. Yep. But when they've had to face like a good defense, they've struggled. But that wasn't supposed to be the case against Minnesota.
So real quick on that Kelce catch and lateral back to Noah Gray, did you guys note the way that is scored, not only for fantasy purposes, but also like in the stat sheet? So Noah Gray actually gets receiving yards for that, but not the reception.
Okay. Oh. That's interesting. He doesn't get rushing yards.
Nope, it's not rushing yards. It is receiving yards without the reception.
Interesting.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah.
What do they do with the yards? Like, so let's say Kelce's at the 32.
Yep.
And he laterals it back to, say, the 29.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy runs forward for 5 yards and gets to the 34. Does he get 2 receiving yards or 5?
He gets the difference from wherever Travis Kelce lateraled it from to where he ends up.
Okay, so Kelce could really
if he laterals it backward 3 yards, he starts at -3 receiving yards and then gains receiving yards as he progresses down the
Kelce
field.
could really, if he didn't like a guy, he'd say, "Here, catch this," and throw it 15 yards back, and be like, "Hey, you just had to eat 15 yards of a loss."
And risk a lost fumble.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that would also probably be a fumble for him.
Yeah, but like let's say he doesn't like Kadarius Toney because nobody likes Kadarius Toney, and he just sees him way back there and just hey, catch this.
But at that point, most likely, Kadarius Toney would just have to jump on the ball. He'd be tagged down there, and he wouldn't lose 15 receiving yards. Those would go against Travis Kelce because it's just a recovery.
I mean, I'm assuming Travis Kelce puts it on the money and he actually catches it, but
Well,
anyway,
what is Kadarius Toney doing 15 yards behind Travis
being
Kelce?
lazy, and so he gets mad. Here's some motivation for you, Slim.
God.
There you go.
We're talking entirely too much about this hypothetical.
Well, you brought up the crazy stat stuff, so I just went down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into best and worst from Week 5. Per Aaron Schatz, quick reads. Best quarterback of the week was Brock Purdy with 213 DYAR. And guess who was number 2? Desmond Ridder.
Hey, he did have a good game this week, yeah.
He had a good game. He had a very good game. He threw the ball a lot. He got Kyle Pitts involved. He got Drake London very involved.
Yeah.
Since when does that happen? I didn't think that was allowed.
Before. I didn't think it was allowed either.
Arthur Smith said we're not supposed to care about the good players being used like good players.
The question is going to be, can they keep doing that against defenses other than Houston's? Because Houston's defense is decent, but it's not good.
It's one game, man.
Like, it's one game.
Yeah, let's not get
They play against the Commanders this week, who had a terrible game against the Bears.
Okay, so
they did.
But,
the worst quarterback of the week was
Michael McCorkle Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mac and Cheese Jones minus 137 DYAR.
We've seen worse quarterbacks, right? Like we've seen
we have.
Yeah, several times this year.
We have.
Yeah. That's pretty bad.
Stinky.
And 0 was average.
0 is replacement level.
Yes.
Oh, 0 is below average.
Yes.
Well below average.
Yes.
It's like 0 means you shouldn't have a job in the league. That's what 0 means.
And this is minus 137.
Minus 137.
The best running back of the week was Zach Moss. He had 84 total DYR and 74 rushing only. Both of those were the top.
They went out and paid this guy. They went out and paid
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, yeah. And after going out of their way not to pay him,
They pay him a bunch of money for a 3-year extension, and then they use this guy, and he has the game of his life.
They also
the best game he has ever had, and probably ever will have again.
They also spite pupped him before that. They just said, "Hey, you're going to sit for however long because we're mad at you for having the gall to ask for money." And then they give him a bunch of money when they already proved that they don't actually need him that much because Zach Moss has been running well, and then he has an even better game. Like, well, what's going on here?
Well, what's going on is you're sounding like you're accusing the Colts of being a well-run organization.
No.
That is not a good accusation.
And let's not do that.
I generally don't do that.
Yeah. The worst running back by both metrics, Eric Gray.
Who is that?
Yeah, that's the right question. I had to put it in the show notes just so I wouldn't forget what team he plays for.
Remember Jonas Gray? Remember him for the Patriots?
Yeah, he had that one huge game, and then we never saw him again.
He
was like the biggest waiver wire ad ever
against the Colts.
We never saw him again.
He was late for practice, so Belichick banished him. So
how many touchdowns did he have in that game?
4.
Eric Gray plays for the New York Giants.
Okay.
Saquon Barkley was inactive, so they mostly used Matt Breida, but this guy came in a little bit, and he did just enough to get minus 38 total DYR and minus 34 rushing only.
Cough up a fumble.
Yeah. The best pass catcher of the week was DJ Moore. Number 2, understandably, was Jamar Chase, but it was like a 20 DYR separation between them. DJ Moore was at 103. You don't see a lot of wide receiver games over the 100 mark.
Oh, no,
that's really impressive. Robert Woods was the worst of the week at minus 34. Robert Woods currently in Evan's fantasy football lineup.
Who does Robert Woods play for now?
Texans.
Yeah, he's with the Texans.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been all over the place.
He has been. Kind of like Brandon Cooks, who's with the Cowboys.
Brandon Cooks
and is also on Evan's roster. He'd probably be the person to plug in if you don't want to start Robert Woods.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot of options right now.
You do not. Let's go into our eliminated. Actually, before we do our eliminated team, quickly talk about where we are with our picks contest. Want to congratulate James Daly. He won the Week 5 fan contest. He had won the first 3 weeks as well. He got 8 picks correct. It's more than Eric or I got. Andrew Perez remains the leader of the fan contest for the season. He's at 40 points, but is currently behind all 3 of us. He was ahead of Evan last week, but Evan had a terrific week.
A week for the ages.
Yeah, got back ahead of our fans.
Got back into the mix, too.
So, thanks to Evan winning this past week with the picks, he gets to go first. Eric, you'll get to go second, and I will go third. So, Evan, so far this season, you have eliminated in order the Colts, Cardinals, Panthers, Bears, and the Raiders. So, that's 3 NFC teams, 2 AFC teams. Who are you eliminating this week?
Alrighty, this week I was reminded there was a famous clip from Shannon Sharp where he picks up the sideline phone and he yells,
good.
"Mr. President, we are killing the Patriots!" And so am I. They're done.
Help is on the way.
Help's not on the way this time.
It was so good.
Yeah, we are killing the Patriots. Like, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
So 3 NFC teams and 3 AFC teams.
I was thinking Denver as well, but I'm like, y'all have both already picked Denver, so I'm going to hold on to them.
You can save them for a little bit.
In the back pocket.
Eric, you started the year with 2 NFC teams, the Rams and the Panthers, and then you switched over to the other conference, and you've eliminated the Texans, the Broncos,
Picked, by the way,
and the Patriots.
Mr. Unlimited
Mr. Extremely Limited.
Yeah.
So the Rams, Panthers, Texans, Broncos, Patriots. Who is joining them on your list this week, Eric?
Spoiled for choice a little bit here. Let's see. You've got. Do I want to hold on to Chicago a little longer? I think I might, because that's just such an easy throw-in when things get a little hairy later in the season. So I'll keep them in the back pocket for now. I'm gonna kill. Let's do. There's so many options. This is crazy. I'm going to do the New York Giants.
All right, you're doing it. Okay. So, like Evan, Eric balanced perfectly between AFC.
I want an NFC team. Yeah.
NFC teams. I have eliminated the Cardinals, Titans, Bears, Giants, and the Broncos. So currently a little bit unbalanced in the favor of eliminating NFC teams. So looking at my options in terms of AFC teams, the Patriots probably would have been where I would want to go. But with them not available, I am going to go ahead and use my pick of the Carolina Panthers. As long as I've got the third pick, I may as well just go ahead and use that and join the two of you in eliminating the Panthers. So I'm going to stay unbalanced. I've now eliminated 4 NFC teams versus 2 AFC teams. But the Panthers are 0-5. There is no hope of them coming back
0-5?
and getting into the
They didn't
playoff
beat
race.
anybody?
They have not beaten anybody.
They haven't really even come close.
No, they haven't.
Like
Didn't they only lose to the Vikings by 4?
And it's not going to get any better because guess who they play this week? They are 13.5-point underdogs
playing the Dolphins
at Miami.
No, they blew it.
And we all have the Dolphins. Spoiler alert.
They had a shot against the Vikings, but then Bryce Young grassed it and it got housed, and then the Vikings scored another touchdown. Their closest loss was probably to the Saints, where they scored a garbage time touchdown to like cut it to 3, but there was only like 40 seconds left. The game was over.
Yep. All right, so let's get into our Week 6 picks against the spread. We already published these on the website last night. It was pretty late when we got it up, but they are there. But we'll talk through some of these games quickly. We're gonna do this a little bit differently this week since we've already made all our picks. I'll start by quickly running through all of our the games that we are in consensus on. Tonight's game, of course, the Thursday night game between the Broncos and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 10.5-point favorites as Travis Kelce gets a huge play down the sideline. We all have the Chiefs covering that spread. We've all got the Bears covering the spread against the Vikings. Minnesota is 2.5-point favorites on the road. We all have the Texans. They are 1.5-point favorites at home against the Saints. We all have the Dolphins covering the 13.5 points against the Panthers. We've all got the Raiders at home. They are 3-point favorites against the Patriots. That feels way too small, even with it being the Raiders. We've all got the Eagles. They are 7-point road favorites at the Jets. And on Sunday Night Football, the Bills are 14-point favorites against the Giants. We are all on the Bills. Were any of those games difficult for either of you guys? Because I can tell you the only one that I really waffled on at all was the Saints-Texans game.
I can agree with that one because reading through, I was a little surprised. Like, oh, I picked the Texans too, really. I mean, I don't know. I might be overrating the Saints a little bit. It might be, don't want to overreact or something. I don't know, really. Like, just, sure, I'll pick the Texans. But
I actually thought the big spreads are pretty easy. Normally the 14-point line, you're kind of like, you scoff at it because you're like, ooh, that's a lot of points to lay, but the Bills against the Giants just feels like, oh, come on.
That one's got to be at least 20.
Like,
come on.
Yeah, you'd
I would even think
you'd
about
have to give
it.
me 3 touchdowns before I'd consider it.
I'd go Bills minus 45.
And I might still take the Bills.
College spread.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, I don't really think I had a hard time. Like the only one, like Evan mentioned the Texans, but just the fact that I think that they've looked, more or less as good as the Saints this year.
C.J. Stroud has been legitimately terrific.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of looked at it and said, I think I'm going to go with the Texans just because, they're only laying, 1.5 points?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be 3.
Yeah.
How close is New Orleans to Houston? Just
pretty close.
Okay.
Like, it's drivable.
So we'll go through our Lone Wolf picks. Eric only has 1 Lone Wolf pick this week. Evan's got 4. I've got 3. And we'll start with the first of Evans. It is the Sunday morning game.
Picked!
Yeah.
No.
That one was,
Mahomes Hahn threw an
Mahomes.
interception.
Wild.
He threw a few of them last week, too.
That was a wounded
Should
duck,
be, yeah.
right? Like, he was
it
about
not-
to get
was
sacked.
It not last week? Was it 2 weeks ago he threw 3 picks?
He's had a couple recently, but
Anyway, the Sunday morning game. The NFL is in London for the 3rd week in a row, but this time the Jaguars will not be featured. Instead, their AFC South rival Titans will be the de facto home team And the Ravens are laying 4 in that game.
Evan,
your Ravens.
Yes, it did say lone wold.
Yeah, I misspelled it initially. I fixed it. But last week, Evan, you lone wolfed your Ravens losing to the Steelers, and you got it right.
Mm-hmm.
You're at it again.
Yeah.
And I believe last week it was also a 4-point spread in
It was.
favor of the Ravens.
For some reason.
And they're getting it again.
Are the FanDuel people, have they seen the Ravens play yet? Like, it's just a mess. You know, that's like, true. The Ravens should win this game. Yeah. You know, on paper, right? The Ravens have a better roster at every position. Maybe except for like back. D-line. Oh, well, running back, yeah. But there's really no excuse for the Ravens not to roll the Titans, and they're not going to because, you know.
Quit asking.
Yeah, quit asking. Exactly, because they can't catch the ball. You know, the Titans seem to save a little extra juice for when they play the Ravens, dating back to the AFC Central days.
That was really the only concern I had when I was thinking about this game. Because to Eric's point, before this last game, the Ravens did not have any drops this season. I don't expect for that to all of a sudden become a trend. Like 1 game out of 5, that's just a really bad day. I think if they don't have those drops, I think the Ravens win this game by more than 4 points.
Well, I also think that you know the Ravens drops. I mean, Nelson Aguilar drops the ball all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews drops the ball all the time,
mm-hmm.
and they were culprits of like Zay Flowers was a surprise guy who was dropping the ball because he's been shorthanded and been frankly great, you know, since you know becoming a Raven. But the drops are a part of the equation for some of these guys. But you know, like I kind of went back and forth on this one a little bit because the Ravens disappoint all the time, it seems, but the Titans are just so untrustworthy in their own right that I'm like I'm gonna let the team with the talent win out, and you know probably gonna regret it, but we'll see.
Also, the last time and only other time the Ravens played in London, they were playing against Jacksonville, and that was an unmitigated disaster as well.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Fortunately, you know, at my apartment that particular morning, I was getting my internet worked on by a technician, so I couldn't watch all of it. Just
got some snippets of beat down.
Exactly.
Moving on to the 1:00 games. Evan, another lone wolf pick for you. You are taking the Manders, who are getting 2.5 points on the road against the Falcons. Eric and I both have Atlanta in that game. Why?
I don't trust the Falcons as far as I can throw them.
You trust the Manders as far as you can throw them?
No, but they're getting points. So.
Yeah, as a road team, though.
Yeah, the Falcons don't have a home field advantage in that place. There's going to be a whole bunch of Manders fans in there.
There are no Manders fans. They don't exist. Grassed it.
The Falcons are better than the Commanders right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They also have a player on their roster who, if he was still in Washington, would be the best quarterback on the Commanders roster. Taylor Heineke.
Oh. I was like, who is that?
Desmond Ridder. I'm like, I don't know. I don't like Sam Howell, but wow, that's a big insult. But
Desmond Ridder at least had a really good game this past week. What has Sam Howell done?
Sam Howell had a nice game against Eagles, right? He's against these bums too, the Broncos.
Broncos.
Yeah, I mean the Broncos are they're a AAA team, but they're a AAA baseball team like playing football. So yeah.
So I mean, I'll be interested in that game purely to see what the Falcons do. Can they actually have a second game in a row where they get Kyle Pitts the ball, where they get Drake London the ball? Because that was really nice to see last week. These are two really good, these are players that could be superstars in the NFL. They have that talent. They have that skill set. And they have been woefully underutilized so far in their NFL careers. It was good to see them actually do stuff last week. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more of that against good defenses. But if for right now we have to settle for it always happening against a bad defense, I would take that. And here we've got a bad defense.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the Falcons do this week. The Seahawks are at the Bengals. The Bengals are laying 3. I'm lone wolfing the Bengals. I'm back on them at this point. I don't see any reason why
What just happened? I got so much crap from you. Why'd you pick the Bengals? They were so terrible for so long. And, their favor against the Cardinals who suck.
Here's the difference. We had not seen any indication before last week that Joe Burrow was going to be good this year. But guess what? Joe Burrow looked excellent last week. He looked comfortable in the pocket, and he looked comfortable out of the pocket. And that's really the thing that moves the needle for me on this. That's what gave me the confidence to pick the Bengals with this spread pick, is the fact that he was moving well outside the pocket. I was very concerned about what was going on when he first came off of the injury report, like fully off of the injury report. I'm like, how does that happen? Like, he just had a game where he had to, he basically had to leave the game early or whatever. I forget exactly what happened, but, it seemed like he had made that injury worse. And then, a week later, he's all of a sudden just not even listed on the injury report. Felt like a cover-up going on, but he looked very comfortable moving around last week. And to me, that indicates that he is back. He's going to be able to run that offense. Things looked a lot better this past week. Obviously, it sucks they don't have T. Higgins, but between him being more mobile, that's going to also open things up for Joe Mixon. I think it makes a huge difference for them. So, I think the Bengals are at least as good as the Seahawks. They certainly should be at least as good as the Seahawks. And they're only laying the 3 at home. So, I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, my pick wasn't so much still, based off of, I think that the Bengals, still secretly suck and, nobody knows it yet. I think it was more based off, I really like what the Seahawks have done. Their offenses look really, really good. Their defensive players, the cornerback that they have, I think it's Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been great, right? So, there's...
Oh, the guy out of Illinois?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh.
They've shown some spunk, right? They've already gone into... we kind of looked at when the Seahawks went to Detroit and beat them in overtime, we kind of looked at that almost like maybe that's a bad loss for the Lions. But what the Seahawks have done since then have really backed it up as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I think they're a good team.
Some of what made us think that might be a bad loss for the Lions, quite frankly, was how bad the Seahawks Week 1 game was against the Rams.
But I think that's...
that might have also been the Rams are better than we expected them to be. So there's a little bit of all that going on.
It's Week 1. It's a mirage, right? I think that the Bengals, are they back? Not quite ready to go that far. Whereas, again, based off of what I've seen through 5 weeks, I like Seattle just a little better when they're getting points.
Fair enough. Anything to add, Evan?
Not really, no.
Okay. So we'll move to Eric's lone wolf pick of the week.
Oh, I actually have one of those?
Yeah, you have one of them. So the 49ers are laying 6.5 on the road at Cleveland. Evan and I have the 49ers covering that spread. I think the 49ers are really, really good, and it's actually surprising to me just how good they are looking. I mean, I had them as my number 7 seed in the playoffs.
What?
You had them losing the division to the Seahawks.
I had them losing the division to the Seahawks, and I had them as the last playoff team.
In a weak NFC, no less.
Yeah.
What two wildcard teams do you have in front of them?
I'd have to go back and look
like the
again.
Vikings or somebody?
Well, I think I had the Vikings winning their division, so I had the Vikings as my number 2 seed. that's not looking great. So I had the Lions ahead of them. And
Washington.
I must have had the Cowboys ahead of them as well.
The Cowboys made sense.
Yeah.
Not anymore, it doesn't, but it made sense at the time.
And the Lions made sense, except that the Lions are going to wind up winning that division, and I'm not sure that the Vikings make sense at all. So the 49ers at worst should have been my number 6 seed. But in any case, the 49ers just feel like more than the sum of their parts to me, which is weird because they have so many really
parts is amazing.
Yeah, they have so many incredibly talented players, and yet for some reason they just I don't know, I think some of it is that it felt like at times they underperform, and so it makes it feel like they shouldn't be. I don't know. They're such a weird team to me.
You're too deep into the fantasy weeds.
They're such a weird team but if it's just about fantasy, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is a god. George Kittle is the guy. Deebo Samuel is
Kittle
the guy.
never does anything except for when he does once a year.
Brandon Ayuk is amazing. They've got so many really good players. Even Brock Purdy is a decent fantasy quarterback. If I was just going off of fantasy, I'd be like, oh, this is the best team that's ever existed. But for some reason, it's hard. I don't know why I consistently underestimate them. But I'm not doing that this week. I am not underestimating the 49ers this week. On the road, laying 6.5. Give me the 49ers. But Eric, talk about your lone wolf pick because you are taking the Browns.
Man, this is going to be my regret of the week. This isn't going to work. And I'm looking at it and say, what the hell was I thinking? I don't know. So I guess I'll talk about what I was thinking. Now I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm in trouble. The Browns' defense has been pretty damn good.
That's the reason to pick them, honestly.
Yeah, like I just, they're getting a lot of points at home with a fantastic defense, with one of the 3 or 4 best, most impactful defensive players on their team, and Myles Garrett. And Grant Delpit's healthy; he's been great. Denzel Ward is healthy; he's been great. So I felt uncomfortable with that big of a line when that defense is there. But I also know that this 49ers offense has just been unstoppable. And if they continue to be unstoppable, it doesn't matter who's out there on the other side. So
the Niners' defense is just as good as the Browns.
That's my concern here, because I don't know that the Browns can score more than 10 points in this game. And the 49ers, regardless of how good the Browns defense is, that 49ers offense is not going to be held under 17. If it's 17-10, the 49ers cover.
I think the 49ers defense has a couple of holes. Like they're still really, really good.
There aren't many. I mean, between Bosa and Fred Warner, Fred Warner covered a receiver and sacked a quarterback on one play last week.
Fred Warner's great.
He played every position in one play.
Their secondary isn't that good. Like, you have to acknowledge the secondary is not good. Now,
but
Deshaun Watson's not going to take advantage of it in all likelihood.
Because not only because Deshaun Watson is not that guy anymore, but also because his only weapons are Amari Cooper and a hobbled David Njoku. Who else is he going to throw the ball to? Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Donovan the Peoples-Jones is great. Come on.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield loved it.
He did love him.
Donovan the Peoples-Jones. I love that.
Yeah, I've been calling him that for years. Is this the first time you heard me say that? Really?
Yes.
That's the first time I've heard him say that too.
I've said it on the chat. The Peoples-Jones. It's great. It's great. But like I said, I'm not confident in this pick at all. Like, I feel like this is a little bit of a knee jerk by me, but
the Niners are the best team in the NFL.
I think they've proven that, through 5 weeks.
Like I think they're going to roll everybody.
I think Philly could still certainly. Philly's defense has gotten it back on track.
When is that game? When are they playing each other?
I cannot wait.
Let's go to the Colts at the Jaguars. Jaguars laying 4.5. Evan, you're lone wolfing the Colts on this one. This is your third lone wolf pick of the week. Explain. I mean,
I can't. I don't know. The AFC
be
South.
Your biggest regret?
Probably. Right? Isn't Gardner Minshew playing for the Colts?
Yeah,
he is a little Minshew mania.
He's good.
Revenge game.
He's good. Like for what he is as a back, is he not the best backup quarterback in football? Like, can you name a better backup quarterback than him?
He's probably the best backup quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
people on Twitter saying it's Huntley. So, Tyler Huntley.
No.
He was a Pro Bowler last year.
Yeah.
Get out of here. That's trash.
Eagles hosting the 49ers on December 3rd at 4:25 p.m.
The appointment viewing.
Yes.
So with the Colts, you got Jonathan Taylor back. Zach Moss, still excellent, had a great game last week. Anthony Richardson is on the IR, so it's Gardner Minshew. The defense has been okay, but beatable for sure. I like the Jags in this game. And who put like a Jaguar emoji in there?
It might have been me.
For Eric. Evan's doing some weird stuff in there. I don't know what he's doing in the
maybe what I don't know.
Chat. Anyway,
but yeah, I think the Jags kind of disappoint sometimes.
They do sometimes.
That's definitely true.
Sometimes they do, but Travis Etienne was excellent last week.
Your
Calvin
boy.
Ridley stepped back up last week. Evan Ingram has been very consistent. Christian Kirk has been excellent. He had a bad week 1. Zay Jones was kind of the guy, like the number 2 guy in week 1, and it's flipped and stayed flipped because Christian Kirk has been amazing since week 2. I think their offense is solid. I think that Trevor Lawrence is more or less back to being the good quarterback we saw him be last year. And frankly, I think the Jaguars defense is better than the Colts defense.
I don't know. Like after last week, I feel like the Jaguars. I feel a little better about them than I had before. So,
I feel like they had such an advantage not having to travel all the way to London, though, like the Bills
but now
did.
they have to travel all the way back.
That's true.
I mean, that's okay though. You're traveling east to or west to east. So.
Yeah, it's not as bad. It is still several hours.
East to west, yeah, because you're coming.
Yeah, east to west. It's not as bad, but it is
East,
still
east,
several
not
hours.
west. Yeah. Okay. All right.
What?
He says that all the time.
Yeah. If you came on any of the 10,000 trips we go on, like, yeah, go east and not west all the time.
Yeah, consistently. Yeah. Anyway.
We'll talk about Evan's last Lone Wolf pick real quick. It's 425 game, his fourth Lone Wolf pick of the week. I'm taking this one a little personally, Evan.
Oh, no. I picked against the Lions?
Yeah, the Lions. Laying 3 as road favorites at Tampa Bay. Eric and I both have the Lions. It's an obvious pick. The Lions are the best team in football. Not quite, but really, really good. They're really, really good. Evan, you're taking the Bucks.
Yeah, the Bucks defense is still good. And, if Jared Goff gets a little skittish, right, as he is wont to do sometimes, he can start slinging picks and,
Doesn't really sling the ball that much in general.
Okay, he'll start flipping picks or tossing them. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So he could turn into a pumpkin. And then what if Baker wakes up feeling dangerous?
He doesn't wake up feeling dangerous very often, though.
He's been pretty good this year.
Let's give Baker he can be a little frisky sometimes.
If the season ended today, which would be ridiculous, he'd be a Pro Bowler. And
would he be, though?
I think he would be. Yeah, he's been legitimately pretty darn good. Give Baker some credit. He's played well.
I don't think Baker's a bust by any means either.
I think that his career's not over, so there's got to be some consideration for the fact that he got drafted by the Browns. So that's always.
We don't have enough time on the show to go over all the other quarterbacks the Browns have drafted who didn't work out.
Anyway, I don't need to get into a full breakdown of Baker Mayfield's career, but I get the Buccaneers have shown a little moxie this year after everybody thought they would suck, except for Cory, who picked them to win the division. Yeah, that happened. But yeah,
another team ahead of the 49ers.
Like the Lions are starting to feel, and this sounds psychotic, but I'm going to say it. They're feeling a little inevitable, right? That offense is a wagon. Their defense has come a long way. Aiden Hutchinson is a monster.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like that dude is a beast.
He is.
And that's a difference maker right there. Like you don't have to have a great overall defense if you've got a couple of dudes out there that can make the plays like he does. That can absolutely flip a game.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to for me. So we'll talk about my second Lone Wolf pick. Another 425 game. Cardinals at Rams. The Rams are laying 7 at home, and I'm taking the Rams. I'm laying the points, taking LA. You got Cooper Kupp back. Looked very good in his return from injury. He didn't really do a whole lot in the second half. I expect that that's going to change in this week. He's going to be very involved throughout the whole game. Puka Nacua still looked very good last week, still very involved. Kyren Williams is one of the best running backs in the NFL right now so far this season. Tyler Higbee has been strong at tight end. You got Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson as the 3-4 guys in that offense at receiver. I think that they have enough weapons on offense to outscore the Cardinals. The Cardinals have looked a little bit less frisky over the last week. Obviously they got the win against the Cowboys. Didn't look as good in week 5 though. So I'm taking the Rams. I'm taking a shot on this one.
Okay. 7 points is a lot of points.
It is.
Well, what did the Rams do last week? I don't even,
I don't remember either.
I don't remember.
But I agree with you, Eric. It's too many points.
So
Division game. The Rams don't have a home field advantage. Remember?
Last week they lost to the Eagles 23-14.
Yeah, their offense didn't really do much in terms of scoring points.
It's a good Eagles team.
I know, but the Eagles' defense hasn't been exactly lights out like we expected them to be. Although Jalen Carter guy's pretty good. So just a quick aside. The Chiefs decided to run a fake field goal tush-push looking play here and it did not work, and they turned it over on downs.
Oh, it didn't work.
No.
Oh.
Well, they didn't show what actually happened. They cut away to the sideline during the play.
Yeah, they were showing a Broncos player
Anyway,
just wasn't on the field.
The Cardinals are coming off a 19-point loss to the 49ers and then a 14-point loss to the Bengals. I don't see why the Rams can't outscore them by at least 7.
Because the Bengals are, according to you, back and really good.
But how much better than the Rams are they?
Way better.
Yeah, way better.
Like, the Bengals weren't even back, and they beat the Rams by 10. Like, we watched that happen. Like, I don't think the Rams' offense is that good. Like, I think they got some guys that run around, but I think their offensive line stinks. I think Matthew Stafford's still kind of, right? He had a nice start, but 7 points, a lot of points to lay. Not feeling that.
No, the Bengals beat the Rams by 3.
Oh, well, they were up 19-9 for most of the game, from what I remember. But
Well.
the point is, not a whole lot going on there.
Okay. It's too many points.
Oh, yeah.
Division
I
game.
think it's too many points.
Too many points.
So the other game, last game of the week, Monday Night Football, I'm lone wolfing. Cowboys are laying 2.5 on the road at LA. Granted, it will be a Cowboys home game.
Yes, it will be.
Against the Chargers. But I'm taking the points, the 2.5 points that they are, and I'm going with the Bolts. You guys are going with the Cowboys.
This is an insane pick.
I think that it's an insane pick either way. I don't think that there is a sane pick that anybody can make in this game because the Chargers are super untrustworthy, but so are the Cowboys right now. What gives you faith in Dallas to cover this spread?
They're playing the Chargers, who never cover anybody or anything. Right?
Austin Eckler is back.
Okay.
Keenan Allen is really good.
Okay.
Justin Herbert is still going to be excellent. His injury is to a finger on his non-throwing hand.
All of these things were true when the Chargers were blowing games against every other team they play. So, Dallas is actually good.
They also got rid of J.D. Salinger, a.k.a. J.C. Jackson.
Why is he J.D. Salinger?
I don't know, because of the initials.
That's not even... Is his buddy Holden Caulfield, too? Whatever. All right.
What are you even talking about?
Well, because they play in Hollywood.
What's going on here?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I thought I was the one who had the ADD. You're just completely gone. What are we talking about?
Mahomes is doing a little motorboat action with his lips. I couldn't help but notice. It was happening right in front of me. What am I supposed to do with that? Anyway,
the point is that they're playing in Hollywood.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, I've seen the show. Yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes. Anyway, the Chargers, again, it's going to be a Cowboys home game, as you mentioned, Corey. Their defense sucks, right? Like the Chargers can't stop anybody, which helps the Cowboys because the Cowboys need all the help they can get on offense. C.D. Lamb has been proclaimed as overrated by somebody. Who's calling that this week?
My wife.
Oh, fair. But I think it was it Rex Ryan on TV was hating on C.D. Lamb.
Rex Ryan hates on everybody.
Doesn't hate on feet. So you got to be real about that.
That's not a buddy. That's only part of a buddy.
Well, he doesn't hate on his wife's feet or his wife for having feet that he likes. So there you go.
You're way less subtle than
Wes Welker.
Wes Welker.
Gotta put your best foot forward.
Well, guess what? I don't have to worry about getting suspended for a quarter in a playoff game that we're gonna end up losing. So there you go. Anyway, the Cowboys defense,
There's a guy with a black eye screaming on TV.
It felt like they might have gotten a little exposed by the 49ers because the 49ers feel like they expose everybody. Certainly have fallen outside the ranks of legitimate contenders.
Too?
Absolutely nobody. But I still think they're better than the Chargers. Let's just get to that point.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, Mike McCarthy's not that good of a coach, but he's way better a coach than Brandon Staley.
He's in my don't trust him tier, whereas Brandon Staley is at the bottom of the Bush Jones list of shame.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
It was tipped. Okay. I was about to say, how did the ball
where was the plan to go? The guy was double covered.
He was. It wasn't going to be a good throw either
way. Well, Mr. Unlimited has unlimited faith in his receivers to get open when they're
limited.
Yeah.
I say that every time. All right. That gets us to the end of our game picks.
That hurt.
Yeah.
Ouch. Anyway, that gets us to the end of our game picks and to the end of our show notes. So, Any late breaking news that you guys want to quickly discuss before we wrap things up for tonight's
Braves
show?
and Phillies are tied at 0. So
What inning is it?
it is the 4th inning.
Okay. Nice pitcher's duel going on. Awesome.
Well, the Braves just scored a run.
Well, there goes that. So 1-0 is a pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what happened.
Uh,
Austin Riley hit a home run.
Oh, again, good for him.
Good for him. As we wrap things up, as always, you can follow us on the socials, on Twitter/X. We are at SportsBallers18. You can also find us individually. I am at Cory Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can email us, thesportsballers@gmail.com, if you have mailbag questions, if you want to join our weekly pick'em and join the fan contest. It's going to be pretty difficult to try and catch up on the season-long circuit, but you can compete against us week by week. We do give those weekly shout-outs as well. You can find us on Facebook, and if you're listening live on YouTube right now, we thank you for joining us and sticking through the show. If you're ever unable to join us live, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, or Amazon. And if you typically listen to us on one of those, you can catch us on whichever one of those is your favorite one. And if you have a different preference for a podcatcher that we are not on, let us know. We can look into getting our show elsewhere. Before we get out of here, shout-outs. Eric.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I had a shout-out that, links to the NBA but not worthy of a story. Shout-out to Jimmy Butler. For those who don't know...
Except for the emo look?
Yes, I was getting
The
to
Cat Williams hair he had?
Yeah, the Fallout Boy Cat Williams hair, whatever, with the studs on his eyebrow, too. So for those who aren't aware, the NBA has media day for every team, and part of that process is players get their headshots taken, and those are what are used for the starting lineup graphics throughout the entire season. Well, last season, Jimmy Butler showed up with these ridiculous extensions in his hair, so his hair was going all the way basically past his shoulders and stuff, and he looked absolutely ridiculous. And by opening night, they were gone, but for the whole ass season, they would show the starting lineup of the Miami Heat, and Jimmy Butler would have just this ridiculous salad flowing. Well, so this year, this is why he did the emo look.
Got it.
So he, I don't know what...
He used a straightener or something for his hair,
Ironed
unless it
his
was a
hair
wig.
flat,
I don't know.
And,
Ironed it flat.
or whatever they
If
use.
it was actually his hair that he did that to,
I think it was his real hair. I think he actually went for it, and it's not going to be a thing for long. But yeah, he went for that.
Kelsey is getting all the catches.
Yes, and so he will now look like that for the next 9 months when you see Jimmy Butler show up during a Miami Heat game. It'll be Jimmy Butler, look at him, and he's going to have the long, flat, straight hair covering one of his eyes and nice stud earrings. So
I thought that was a costume like Southeast Jerome or something.
well, it is a costume meant to just troll the NBA for an entire year, and it's delightful. And I honestly didn't know if he was going to run it back and do something else crazy this year. I'm glad he did. It's a lot of
Well,
fun.
hopefully he'll do something crazy again next year, and it'll be every year.
Yeah, it'll just become a thing.
All right. Evan, shout-outs.
I don't have any.
No?
I never remembered to prepare one, and I couldn't think of one on the spot.
Okay. Well, my shout-out this week is actually the same as my shout-out last week. It is Eric and Scott Sicko. Last week, I mentioned it was because I was under the weather and unable to join them in the booth for our penultimate football broadcast of the year on DM Stags TV.
The season's almost over. Y'all just started.
Our broadcast season is over. We don't have any more home games to broadcast. So this past Friday was our homecoming game. It was our first WCAC game of the schedule. It was against our biggest historic rival, Gonzaga. And I was back. Mm-hmm. I was ready to be in the booth. And then all of my kids, because my students for video broadcast all realized, oh, I haven't worked a game. I need to work a game. So I get all these kids who haven't worked a single game all year, most of them, all come in for the biggest game of the year. And I am running around like a chicken with its head cut off trying to teach them on the spot how to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Oh, it's like the speaking points at the end of the quarter. The line is out the door
Yes, it is.
because it's running out of time.
Thankfully, I had Eric there doing play-by-play and Scott there helping out with the analysis to be able to cover every time I had to leave the booth or take my headset off to address something with the kids upstairs or right next to us, which was frequent. No. Very frequent.
Cory was barely present at times. I had to make sure that the people that were watching understood we're not freezing Cory out. Like we're not shutting him down. He's just got so much else going on that he can barely. Like even when Cory actually had the headset on, eyes are still bouncing everywhere. It's like, oh yeah, that play was great.
Multiple times I came back in and I was like, I have no idea what just happened on the last drive. Like Eric asked me something about like what the Stags should do on the next drive with defense, and I was like, honestly, I don't even know what adjustments we need to make because I don't know what we did on the last drive. I just know that I looked up at the scoreboard. I was like, oh, Gonzaga scored.
Yeah, they scored their only
not
touchdown. That's weird. Yeah, so yeah, it was.
So we got the dub though, and now our broadcasting season is over because the only other regular season home game DeMatha has is next week against St. John's, and ESPNU has bought the rights to broadcast that game.
ESPNU?
Yeah. I felt pretty good about it until I had to say WCAC play at the end, and I couldn't get that out of my hole.
You tried it like 3 times.
It was real bad.
Get that out of your hole.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the most watched game of the year. So even like Will Massimini is in our league chat, like
and it was
making a reference to it.
And it was what looked like the game-deciding play. So I'm trying to hype it up, like DeMatha makes a big stand, and then it turns out that didn't happen because they got flagged for roughing the passer.
They got flagged on every play of the whole damn game.
Yeah, and so like finally when they actually won the game, I was like, all right, we won. Let's get out of here. Let's go home. I don't care anymore. Let's leave.
Yeah, because like we did like the whole wrap-up thing before.
Yeah, because we assumed the game was over.
Because we thought it was over. Yes. Oh, Kadarius Toney did something. He scored a touchdown.
Got a tutter. Yeah, good for him. Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce already has 109 receiving yards in this game, by the way.
109?
Yeah, it's insane. He has 7 catches. Patrick Mahomes has only thrown 17 passes.
Oh, okay.
Well, Taylor's in the building, gotta.
Yeah, gotta feed him. All right, well, that will do it for tonight's show. Again, if you made it all the way through, thank you. We appreciate your support. Feel free to drop us a note if you like what we do, if you have suggestions, critiques, any of the above. You can drop us a line on all those social media platforms I mentioned before. Next week will be episode 257. Eric will be hosting, and he will run us through his NBA season preview because the NBA season starts next Wednesday, the 18th. Is that right?
No, it's the following Tuesday after next week's show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why did I think it was next week? Anyway.
It usually is, but for some reason it's a week later this year.
But anyway, it will be our last show before the regular season officially tips off. So he will run through what he expects us to see this year. I'm excited about that because it'll be my first time to actually get to know what this year's NBA landscape looks like because I don't pay attention during the offseason.
What are you talking about? I do this every year.
No, I know.
But you said this is the first time you're going to be excited. Like, what's
No, I said I'm excited for it because it'll be the first time that I know what the NBA landscape is going to look like for this season.
Well, you should pay more attention to the league. The league is great.
That's what you're for.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I totally use you on this podcast. Well, it's great for me.
Use me all you want. That's fine.
All right, we'll wrap up. Episode 256. Thank you so much for listening. Cory Puffett for Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. And we'll see you next week.